When we speak about sex after 30, many people instinctively think of decline. They believe that something is being lost: stamina, spontaneity, passion. But let us look deeper. What truly changes is not simply the body, but our relationship with it. The body speaks differently with age. It no longer shouts through youthful urges and impulses. It whispers with subtler rhythms and quieter needs. And if we are not present, if we are not aware, we miss these messages. You see, in your 20s, the body often functions on momentum. Energy seems endless. Hormones are at their peak. You can go without sleep, push your limits, and still expect the body to respond. But after 30, that same body begins to shift. For some, it's very noticeable. A dip in libido, slower recovery, or reduced physical sensitivity. For others, the change is gradual, almost unnoticeable, like the quiet turning of a season. It's easy to see these changes as something negative. But this is where most people misunderstand. The body is not betraying you. It is simply asking you to meet it at a deeper level. Where once your focus may have been purely on physical sensation, now the invitation is to bring your mind, your awareness, into the experience. This is the beginning of conscious intimacy, when the body alone is not leading the interaction, but the body and mind are moving together. With age, our body asks for gentleness. It asks for rest when it is tired. It needs movement, not for aesthetics, but for vitality. It thrives not on stimulation, but on balance. And this extends into our sexual energy. Sex after 30 can be more fulfilling than ever before, but only when we stop trying to recreate the past and instead learn to fully inhabit the present. When awareness grows, every moment becomes richer. A touch becomes meaningful. A pause becomes powerful. And the connection no longer lies only in what is done, but in how it is done, with intention, with attention, with presence. This is the age when performance loses its importance and presence takes its place. You no longer need to prove anything. You're not chasing validation or measuring yourself against an invisible standard. The focus begins to shift from doing to being, and this is where true pleasure lives, not in the endless pursuit of excitement, but in the surrender to the moment. Our modern world doesn't teach us this. We are told that sexual vitality is about youth, about high frequency, about endless energy. But these are illusions. What matters most is not frequency, but quality. Not how often, but how deeply. Not how much, but how present. When you approach intimacy with this understanding, you begin to notice how much more your body can give when you actually listen to it. After 30, it is no longer useful to fight your biology. Instead, it is time to align with it. Sleep becomes sacred. Food becomes fuel. Breath becomes a guide. The body doesn't need to be forced into performance. It needs to be supported into balance. When the nervous system is calm, when the breath is steady, when the mind is not racing, the body naturally opens to pleasure. And this pleasure is not just in the physical act. It's in the silence before the touch, in the shared glance, in the slow unfolding of trust. This is what changes. Your body is not failing you. It is guiding you toward a more profound experience. But to receive it, you must slow down. You must pay attention. You must let go of the old ideas of what sex should be and instead begin to ask, what do I truly feel? What do I truly need? And how can I offer that same presence to my partner? The truth is, sex after 30 is not about decline. It is about refinement. And refinement demands presence. It demands stillness. It demands that you become sensitive, not just to your body, but to your energy, your thoughts, your emotional state. Because the deeper your awareness, the deeper the connection. And in that depth, you may find something even greater than passion. You may find peace. In the earlier years, desire often arrives like a wave crashing onto the shore, strong, sudden, almost uncontrollable. It pulls us with urgency, guided mostly by impulse and instinct. But as the years go by, and we cross into our 30s, something begins to shift. That same desire doesn't always come uninvited anymore. It begins to ask for something more before it reveals itself. And in this change, many people feel they are losing something. But this is not a loss. It is a transition, and one that can lead to something far more fulfilling if we allow ourselves to grow with it. After 30, desire is no longer just a spontaneous reaction to external stimuli. It starts to emerge from a deeper place, from intention, from emotional connection, and from mental clarity. We are no longer solely responding to physical attraction or hormones. We are responding to meaning, to energy, to resonance. This is why some people begin to notice that their desire is no longer predictable. It doesn't just switch on in the same ways it used to. It asks for presence. It asks for emotional safety. It asks for trust. And above all, it asks for authenticity. This evolution of desire is not a weakening. It is a refinement. The flame is still there, but the fire now burns slower, steadier, and warmer. It's no longer a flash of heat that disappears quickly. It's a slow kindling that, once lit, can sustain warmth far longer, far longer. But to feel this warmth, we must first stop trying to force the old fire. We must stop chasing the intensity of the past and start inviting the depth of the present. Many people feel frustrated when they notice that their desire doesn't come as frequently or as easily. But rather than seeing this as a deficiency, it can be viewed as a doorway. A moment to ask deeper questions. What draws me closer to another now? What kind of connection am I really seeking? Is it physical relief or is it emotional nourishment? And am I present enough to know the difference? In your 30s, your relationship with yourself matures. You begin to understand your emotional patterns, your energetic cycles, your physical sensitivities, and all of this starts to influence your sexual energy. Desire becomes more selective, not out of limitation, but out of wisdom. Out of wisdom, you start choosing partners and moments not for distraction, but for alignment. Not just for pleasure, but for truth. There is something profoundly beautiful in that, when your longing is no longer loud, but honest. This is where the practice of conscious desire begins. You are no longer rushing to feel something. You are pausing to feel everything. You learn that arousal is not just in the body. It begins in the mind, in the heart, in the presence you bring into each moment. And when this presence is there, when you are not trying to perform or impress, when you are simply being, desire flows naturally. It is no longer a game to win. It is a connection to deepen. Sex after 30 is not just about you want. It becomes about what you wanted. Becomes about why you want it. And in this reflection, you often discover that intimacy without intention leaves you feeling emptier than before. But intimacy with intention, even when it is less frequent, nourishes you deeply. You walk away feeling more whole, not more depleted. That is the power of evolved desire. We also begin to recognize that attraction is no longer just visual or physical. It becomes energetic. It is about how someone makes you feel, about how safe you feel in their presence, about the way your energies meet and move together. When you look into someone's eyes and feel seen, truly seen, the desire that arises from that space is unlike anything physical alone can provide. It is magnetic, but it is calm. It is powerful, but it is rooted. This kind of desire cannot be rushed, it cannot be faked, and it certainly cannot be sustained by performance. It needs space, it needs truth, it needs the kind of silence where both people can just breathe together without needing to fill the void with action. In that stillness, something profound emerges. A connection that doesn't rise and fall with mood or stress or schedule, but a connection that grows because it is nourished by mutual understanding. After 30, desire becomes a mirror. It reflects where you are emotionally, physically, and spiritually. And if we're willing to look into that mirror honestly, we find a new kind of intimacy waiting for us. One that is not just about seeking pleasure, but about sharing presence. And when you realize that, you also realize that what's changed isn't just your sex life. What's changed is you. Ooh. As we move into our 30s, something else becomes impossible to ignore. The weight of responsibilities, the speed of life, the demands placed on our time, our energy, and our minds. Work becomes more intense. Family commitments deepen. I know. The body, once effortlessly resilient, now begins to respond to these pressures with greater sensitivity. And one of the first areas where this is felt is in our sexual energy. Not because the desire has disappeared, but because the space in which it once freely flowed has become crowded with tension, fatigue, and distraction. Sex, at its core, is not separate from the rest of our life. It is deeply connected to how we move, how we breathe, how we carry ourselves through the day. When we are constantly stressed, when we are underslept, overcommitted, and mentally scattered, our body does not prioritize intimacy. It prioritizes survival. The nervous system becomes tight. The breath becomes shallow. The energy that once moved freely becomes stuck. And when energy is blocked, desire cannot rise. Not naturally, not sustainably. This is why so many people after 30 begin to feel a kind of disconnection from their own sensuality. It's not that it's gone. It's that they can't access it. They try to fix it externally, through stimulation or performance. But the root is internal. It's in how we treat the body. It's in how we manage our time, our stress, our thoughts. When the body is drained, when the mind is heavy, it becomes almost impossible to feel the spark that intimacy needs to ignite. But the good news is, this can be reversed. And it does not require more effort. It requires more awareness. The first step is recognizing that your lifestyle and your energy are not two separate things. What you eat, how you move, the quality of your sleep, the stillness or chaos in your mind, all of it affects the energy system that fuels not just your physical health, but also your sensual vitality. A body that is constantly stimulated by stress hormones will naturally suppress sexual function. This is not a failure. This is intelligence. Your body is trying to protect you, but once the danger or the perception of danger is removed, the body begins to open again. And so the practice is not to fight the body, but to create conditions where the body feels safe again. Safe to rest, safe to feel, safe to open. When you begin to move the body with mindfulness, when you stretch, breathe deeply, and bring your attention into your movements, the energy that was locked begins to flow again. Blood circulation improves. The nervous system shifts from a state of fight or flight to one of calm and restoration. And in that state, intimacy becomes accessible again, not forced, not scheduled, but naturally arising from a place of peace. Food also plays a powerful role. What you consume becomes your energy. Heavy processed, overly stimulating foods dull the senses and drain the system. But nourishing, balanced, clean food brings clarity and lightness. The body feels supported. And that support becomes the foundation for deeper connection, not just with the partner, but with yourself. Most people believe sexual desire should arise automatically, as it once did. But after 30, the body becomes more sensitive, more responsive to internal balance. The energy that once surged now requires cultivation. And this cultivation is not complicated. It simply asks for consistency, daily movement, mindful breath, time away from screens, restorative sleep, a willingness to slow down and check in. All of this creates an environment where energy can flourish again. And when that energy rises, desire follows. We must also consider emotional energy. Every unresolved conflict, every suppressed emotion, every burden we carry in silence, all of it weighs down the system. The body holds what the mind does not process. And that heaviness over time becomes numbness. You cannot feel deeply when you are constantly suppressing what you really feel. So the path back to sensual vitality must include emotional honesty, speaking your truth, letting go of resentment, forgiving not for others but for your own liberation. The truth is, sex after 30 becomes more dependent on how you care for yourself. It becomes a reflection of your lifestyle, your habits, your choices. It is not about chasing stimulation. It is about building a foundation where intimacy can grow without force. And in this process, you begin to realize something important. You are not separate from your energy. You are your energy. And when you care for that energy, when you cultivate it with patience and respect, it begins to reward you, not just in moments of passion, but in every area of your life. The body knows how to heal. It knows how to desire, but it needs your help to remember. There comes a moment, especially after the age of 30, when we begin to understand that connection is not created through touch alone. We start to realize that real intimacy begins long before the body is involved. It begins in the words we speak, in the silences we allow, in the presence we bring to a conversation. Communication, once seen as something simple or even secondary, now becomes the foundation of every meaningful connection. And when it comes to sex, this becomes even more true. In younger years, many rely on assumption. They believe that passion alone will guide the way. They mistake physical chemistry for emotional closeness. But as we mature, we learn that what seems like desire can often be tension. What seems like excitement can sometimes be anxiety. We begin to value clarity over guessing, softness over performance, safety over pressure, and all of this begins with how we communicate. After 30, communication becomes the real foreplay. It becomes the space where trust is built, where fears are named, where expectations are released. Because only when two people are truly heard, truly seen, can their bodies begin to open in an authentic way. When you don't have to pretend, when you don't have to impress, when you can simply be as you are, that is when something real happens. But this kind of openness requires courage. It asks us to speak what we feel, even if it feels awkward. It asks us to listen, not just to respond, but to understand. It asks us to meet our partner, not with judgment or impatience, but with curiosity and compassion. This is not always easy. We carry past wounds. We carry shame. We carry old narratives about what we should be, how we should act, what is expected of us. And often, we keep silent because it feels safer than being vulnerable. But silence, in the space of intimacy, slowly builds walls. It creates distance, even if the bodies are close. And over time, that distance becomes more painful than any truth we were afraid to share. So we must choose to speak, to name what we feel, to say what we need, to express what we enjoy, what we struggle with, what we hope for. This is not weakness. It is strength. It is strength. Because when we communicate with honesty, we give our partner permission to do the same. We create a space where both can breathe freely. In that space, sex transforms. It is no longer something we do to each other. It becomes something we create together, an experience shaped not by expectations, but by mutual presence, not by roles, but by resonance. And this shared space becomes more powerful than anything physical. Because the emotional connection holds the physical in place. It gives it meaning. It gives it depth. Many people search for passion, but overlook the soil in which passion grows, trust. And trust is not built in the bedroom. It is built in everyday moments. In the way we talk when nothing is at stake. In the way we show up when our partner is tired or vulnerable or confused. In how we hold space for their truth even when it challenges us. When these things are present, sex becomes something else entirely. It becomes an extension of emotional truth, not an escape from it. And something beautiful happens when communication becomes the foundation. Misunderstandings become less frequent. Pressure dissolves. The need to perform fades. Because when we are emotionally safe, our body naturally relaxes. And when the body relaxes, pleasure becomes effortless. Desire flows without being chased, and intimacy unfolds in ways that feel new, even if we've been with someone for years. This is also why we must learn to communicate beyond words, through presence, through touch, through eye contact, through silence, to simply be with another person, fully present, without rushing to the next moment. This is a rare gift. And after 30, we begin to crave this kind of slowness, this kind of depth. We no longer want more. We want real. And to experience the real, we must risk showing up fully. Not just our strengths, but our fears. Not just our desires, but our hesitations. Because true intimacy does not come from perfection. It comes from honesty. And when two people meet in that space, sex becomes sacred. Not because it follows a script, but because it is alive, unpredictable, present, whole. The deeper the communication, the deeper the connection. And in that connection, even the simplest moments become extraordinary.